Hi, welcome to Pai Love Story. I'm your host, Lilja. I live in Pai, a magical little town in northern Thailand where every day feels like a festival and every connection feels a little bit distant. This podcast is about the love stories that happen here, the short ones, the forever ones, the ones that break you open. Because something about Pai changes people, and love here is never ordinary. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to Pai Love Story. This is Lilja. Welcome back to Pai Love Story. Today's episode is a little different. It's not another love story. It's actually the story behind this podcast. If you ask me how Pai Love Story started, and I think if I'm going to end season 2, I owe you the real story. It actually began after the end of a relationship. I won't go into too many details because this isn't about that person, but I have fallen for someone who was an artist in Pai. Being with him felt exciting, spontaneous, and full of adventure. After that relationship ended, I found myself trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Around that time, I came across this phrase, fuck around and find out. For me, it wasn't just about dating. It became a philosophy. What happens if we stop trying to control life? And what happens if we are willing to be curious, to take risks, to meet strangers, or to ask questions we've never asked before? That's how Pai Love Story was born. At the beginning, I actually imagined something quite different. I thought maybe this podcast would explore attraction, desire, chemistry, and maybe even tell more sensual or provocative stories about love. I wanted to be playful and a little daring. But something unexpected happened. Maybe it's also because of my personality. After interviewing just a few guests, the conversations naturally went somewhere else. People weren't really talking about sex. They were talking about healing, forgiveness, fear, loneliness, growth. The podcast slowly became much more spiritual than I had ever imagined. And honestly, there was a moment when I wondered if I should just give up the original idea completely. Then my friend Nicole said something I never forget. She laughed and said, you can also fuck around and give up. I love that because giving up isn't always failure. Sometimes giving up is simply making room for something more authentic. So I let the podcast become what it wanted to become. Then came episode 5. That's when Fabi walked into my life. Again, completely unexpectedly. Some people enter your life quietly, and some people arrive like a storm. Fabi didn't just become a guest on this podcast. He became someone who shined a light on parts of myself that I hadn't fully seen before. He reflected both my hopes and my shadows. Our connection was beautiful, confusing, joyful, heartbreaking, and deeply human. Because of that experience, I realized something. I wasn't just interviewing people about love anymore. I was living my own love story at the same time. And when that chapter of my life came to an end, I noticed something inside me had changed. Right now, I don't feel curious about romantic love in the same way I did when I started this podcast. Instead, I feel called to understand myself, to heal more, to create from a quieter space. That's why I've decided to end season 2 here. Not because I don't believe in love anymore. Actually, I think I believe in love even more. I just think love has changed its form. Right now, love looks like choosing myself. Love looks like slowing down, and love looks like allowing grief to exist without rushing to replace it with another story. For now, I'm going to put my energy into Fly with Lily and my Chinese podcast, 学英语环游世界, where I can continue sharing my journey of personal growth, mindfulness, travel, and creating a meaningful life. Maybe Pai Love Story will come back next year, and maybe it won't. I've learned not to force these things anymore. If love wants another season, I'm sure it will find me. To everyone who has listened, shared your stories, or simply walked beside me on this journey, thank you. Pai Love Story was never just about romance. It became a story about being human. And for that, I'll always be grateful. Before I say goodbye, I'd love to ask one small favor. If this podcast has meant something to you, I hope you will continue the journey with me by following Pai Love Story on Instagram. Even though the podcast is taking a break, I don't think the conversation about love ever really ends. On Instagram, I'll continue sharing reflections, behind-the-scenes moments, little stories from Pai, and perhaps snippets of conversations that don't make it into a full podcast episode. If one day Pai Love Story returns, that's also where you will be the first to know. I'd also love to hear from you. Tell me which episode touched you the most, and tell me what love has taught you, or simply send me a message to say hello. One of the most beautiful things this podcast has given me isn't just the stories, it's the people behind them. So let's stay connected. You can find me on Instagram at Pai Love Story. Thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting me with your time, your stories, and your heart. Until we meet again, thank you for listening. This is Lilja. I'll see you somewhere down the road. Thank you for listening to this episode of Pai Love Story. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who once loved in Pai or someone who still believes in magic. Subscribe, leave a review, and follow along for more stories from the mountains. Until next time, stay open, stay wild, and let love find you.